Well, welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks so much for joining with us. We've got a great good news story to start off. It's been a week since the regular Wednesday chapel at Asbury University in Kentucky, well, it turned into something far more. It turned into the manifest presence of God. God has been moving among the students and faculty, and people are traveling to the university to join in this move of God.
Well, one student told CBN News he prays this revival will encourage churches and pastors and stir up a hunger for the Lord. Wendy Griffith brings us the story from Wilmore, Kentucky.
The revival here at Asbury is now in its 6th night, as hundreds of people have come from near and far to just enjoy the presence of God. Even though it's almost midnight, this auditorium is still packed with people that are still coming in.
In the last 2 evenings, we've estimated well over 3,000 people that are here and at these different locations to worship the Lord.
Were you prepared for this?
No, there's no playbook for this. We're still trying to create some space for what's happening here. And so that's a delicate balance, and we're trying to manage that as thoughtfully and faithfully as we can and just steward what's happening on campus.
I was definitely a bit skeptical at first, just because growing up with my church, we never had anything like this, and so I just wasn't used to the idea of a revival. But the longer it's gone on, I've realized that if God wants it to happen, it's going to happen.
My prayer is that this will encourage churches, encourage pastors, encourage just believers, and just stir up a hunger for the Lord, because again, it's not about Asbury, it's about Jesus.
The fire that started here at Asbury is reportedly spreading as students from nearly 24 other college campuses have come here to take part in the services. And what God started here a week ago is showing no signs of stopping. Wendy Griffith, CBN News, Asbury University in Wilmore, Kentucky.
Well, apparently it's infectious. Lee University is already seeing a similar move. I know of many universities sending delegations there in hopes that they can catch it and bring it back. And if you want to catch it, I think it's online, so you can watch. You don't have to go to Kentucky for it. And realize this, God is always all around us. He is always waiting for us. We keep asking him, when are you going to pour yourself out over us? And he keeps saying, well, when are you going to receive it? When are you going to take the time to come and just sit at my feet and let me pour into you? You can have revival every day. You can have Jesus 24 hours a day. It all depends on, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? If you are, if you seek him first, then you'll find him. Well, we're going to have an in-depth report on the Asbury Revival on Friday's 700 Club. So stay tuned for that. We want to cover this and how it's going to spread. My prayer is this spreads across the nation and around the world. If anything we need right now, we need more of Jesus. In other news, a major political battle in Israel is now heating up. The issue, changing the power of the Supreme Court. Mark Martin has that story from the CBN newsroom. Mark?
Gordon, the issue is so volatile that Israelis have taken to the streets, demonstrating outside the Knesset a day after the Israeli president pleaded with his countrymen on primetime television not to let the controversy destroy the nation. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Tens of thousands of demonstrators from around the country gathered outside Israel's Knesset.
We came to demonstrate against the very aggressive legislation.
Inside the Knesset, lawmakers introduced legislation to change the judicial system, which includes limiting Supreme Court power to overrule legislation and giving lawmakers more power over appointing judges.
I feel, we all feel that we're in a moment before a collision, even a violent collision, a barrel of explosives before a blast.
The divisive issue prompted Israeli President Isaac Herzog to address the nation.
The judiciary must be a home for the diversity of opinions in Israeli society.
Herzog says the call for reforms is a product of imbalance between authorities. Many opponents believe Prime Minister Netanyahu could use the changes to stop the trial against him. Others fear it might lead to religious law being imposed here.
The reason that there's mistrust here is because the Minister of Justice himself said that this reform was a 4-story building reform. And what we're seeing now is only the first floor. For the people of Israel, the population here, there's lack of transparency as to what the government is planning.
Advocate Yehuda Schaefer argues the Israeli political system has no checks and balances except elections and the Supreme Court.
We don't have a constitution. We don't have 2 houses of parliament. All the basic rights in Israel, like freedom of expression, freedom of the press, and many others, are written nowhere and have been created by the court in common law.
Simcha Rotman, who heads the Knesset's Constitution, Law, and Justice Committee, however, claims the Supreme Court has overstepped its boundaries.
And the court is biased. The court is canceling legislation by the Knesset for political reasons.
Rotman sees the changes as positive for all of Israel, from the economy to the fight against terrorism.
People will elect their representative, and their representative will push forward the policies that they are elected to do. A lot of changes, but the main issue is Israel will be a democratic, self-governed country.
It is possible to reach a broad consensus, which will put the citizens of Israel above all debate.
While he's calling on the government to stop the legislation, Netanyahu's coalition has moved ahead while saying they are still open to dialogue with the left. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Here in the U.S., a town hall meeting will be held tonight in the Ohio village of East Palestine, which was upended by a freight train derailment, spilling dozens of cars filled with toxic chemicals and the intentional burning of some of the hazardous chemicals on board. The village invited affected residents to the meeting to discuss their ongoing questions and concerns, including ongoing smells, reports of sick or dead animals, the potential impact on drinking water, and more. Brody Carter has that story.
Authorities maintained they were doing their best when they chose to conduct a controlled burn of the toxic materials that spilled to avoid an explosion. They do admit these chemicals did have some effect on the water and air, but they say and maintain the drinking water has been protected.
The spill did flow to the Ohio River during that initial slug, but the Ohio River is very large, and it's a water body that's able to dilute the pollutants pretty quickly.
We have estimated, based on our sampling and modeling, about 3,500 dead fish.
At least 3 toxic substances were released into the air, soil, or water, according to the Environmental Protection Agency.
Most people can be around these volatile organic compounds at low levels without really feeling health effects. However, at higher levels, especially over a longer period of time, then we can have longer-term health effects. And that's why there is the concern around these compounds.
One substance called vinyl chloride, which is used to make plastics like PVC piping, was diverted into a trench and burned off.
This is not storm clouds!
The chemical is associated with increased risk of cancer, and when it's burned, releases similar gases used as a weapon in World War I. Concerns are shared across several cities.
You didn't have to do this. You did it because of time and money.
Ohio Governor DeWine said he spoke with Norfolk Southern CEO Alan Shaw, who promised the company would remain in the area until the damage was completely cleared.
Gave me his word and his commitment that the railroad would do that. They would not leave until that was done.
But the governor was surprised to learn the reason the state wasn't notified about what was in those rail cars coming through Ohio.
Even though some rail cars did have hazardous material on board, and while most of them did not, that's why it was not categorized as a high hazardous material train. Frankly, if this is true, and I'm told it's true, this is absurd.
Norfolk Southern is testing the air and water inside hundreds of homes. Results will be released next week. The Guardian reports about 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are shipped by rail every year, with one former Norfolk Southerner engineer telling the paper the Ohio wreck is the tip of the iceberg and a red flag, and that the next one could be cataclysmic. The derailment has renewed calls for stringent federal oversight of the rail industry so other communities might be protected in the future. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Turning now to the crisis in the aftermath of those deadly earthquakes along the border of Turkey and Syria. The death toll is now more than 41,000 and expected to rise far higher. A few survivors are still being found, like this 42-year-old woman who was saved 222 hours after being buried in the rubble. But much of the focus is now on disaster relief for victims of the quakes. This woman in Turkey telling CBN's Operation Blessing how much they need after this historic tragedy.
We need food, we need water, we need everything. We don't have anything. Even shoes. Help us, help us. We need your help.
Operation Blessing teams have packed supplies for survivors, including hygiene and basic items for families, along with food for kids. Also solar lamps to help people see in the darkness as they're without power. And Gordon, as we can see there, obviously the need is very great.
Need is enormous. We're mobilizing teams. We're trying to get a team in from the Philippines to help with this disaster relief. Teams from Indonesia, from Europe, from right here in the United States, from Mexico. This is an all-hands-on-deck moment. We need to help these wonderful people in their time of need. Realize they're made in the image of God. God loves them, so let's love them too. Let's provide for them in their moment, and in that, we fulfill what Jesus asked us to do. He asks us to love our neighbor. He asks us to feed the hungry, to clothe the naked, to provide for those, provide shelter. So how can we do that? Well, we need lots of people to join with us to say, yes, I want to be a part of this. If that's you and you'd like to join in, you can send your gift to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. Number one, you can call us right now, 1-800-700-7000, and say, I want to give. You can also write us a check if you'd like, and write to CBN Center, Virginia Beach, Virginia, 23463. Just put Disaster Relief Fund on the memo line. You can text to give, OBDR 71777, or just go to cbn.com. There's a place there where you can designate your gift to the Disaster Relief Fund. Either way you choose to do it, be a part of helping these people. The need is absolutely staggering. In my lifetime, I know of only one disaster. It comes even close to this, and that was the tsunami in Indonesia. Killed 100,000 people, literally wiped out a city. We need to be there for them and say, yes, we want to come alongside you. The whole world needs to come alongside. It's that kind of magnitude of a problem. So let's do our part. Let's be there. 1-800-700-7000.